Good afternoon. My name is Richard O'Bryan, and once more you have found the Standup Philosopher. The topic of my video today is going to be faith. I'm not going to do it as a theologian or a philosopher because those people have the ability to obscure the obvious and complicate the simple. I'm going to present it as the teacher that I am and as the man of faith that I profess to be. Faith in and of itself is really a simple concept. If we take Tarzan, for example, Tarzan, in my opinion, had no faith whatsoever. Why? Because Tarzan would never let go of one vine in the jungle until he had his hand on the other vine. And to me, that's not faith. Faith is letting go with both hands and believing that the vine in front of you will be there waiting. Faith in and of itself is simply letting go. I would like to give you another example of faith from my own life. One evening I was at a church service and the topic of the sermon was faith. Now, I have a pet peeve when I go to church, and that is parents who bring young children to church and then do not control them, so they make so much noise. They are distracting to other people who are trying to listen and to pay attention to what is being said and done. Now, do not get me wrong. I am not against bringing young children to church. I think the Spirit speaks through them. And I learned a very important lesson, and that is that which bothered me is that which taught me the greatest lesson. For in the back of the church where I was sitting, right across from me, was a gentleman who had a young child. And the child was maybe 18 months to 2 years old. And he was making a tremendous commotion. And I kept looking over out of the corner of my eye, trying to get his attention to get him to stop. And then I decided to give him my entire Marine Corps glare. And as I turned my head and looked over, I did not make eye contact with the father or the little boy. And I'm so glad that I didn't, because what I saw was the little boy was sitting on his father's lap facing him. And the father was watching what I was watching, the minister speaking. And the little boy would rock forward, and then all of a sudden he'd just throw himself back, and the father would hold out his hands, and the little boy would fall into his father's hands. And he was doing this over and over. And not once did that little child look back to see if his father's hands were there. That, to me, was one of the greatest examples of faith I have ever seen or heard in my entire life. Now, everybody thinks there's a great controversy between science and religion where it comes to faith. I don't really see that much of a conflict. I think that science and religion are first cousins. It's just that science has a bigger ego. I think that science also has a great deal of faith as its basis. For a theory is faith. The theory of evolution is the scientist's faith. The theory of the Big Bang is the scientist's faith, even though they may not admit it. If we take example of the Big Bang, I think that science has a very interesting perspective, but they don't have the correct view. For science stands and they try to look back through history. And they look back through time, through the planets as the universe grows smaller and smaller and smaller. And then they believe that the universe was all matter in a very, very, very tiny sphere, tiny ball, tiny bump. And then for no reason whatsoever, it just decided to explode and become the universe. That's an interesting perspective. But I believe as a man of faith, I have a better view. For I see history as well. And I can look from my view on the side. And I watch the universe get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until it is all in what scientists say is a bump. I don't think it's a bump. I think what they are seeing is what I see from the side, and it is the finger of God. And God is not saying bang. God is saying become. So if you look at it, science and faith really aren't in conflict there. Now, I think the funny thing is going to be that the scientist will say to me, well, my faith will never be proven. And I'll say to him, well, neither will yours. But here is the way I look at it. If my faith is correct, and I believe it is, when I die, I'm going to be the happiest creature that was ever created. And if the scientist is correct, I'll die and I'll never really know. I'm in a win-win situation. Thank you very much. If you have a comment, please leave it. If it's for the video, please let me know. If you disagree with what I say, please let me know. But just don't be silent, because silence is a cancer. And that's how misunderstandings happen. If you disagree with me, that's how I learn. By people who disagree with me, not by people who agree with me. Please also follow my other social media, my Instagram, my Twitter, and my Facebook. Please know that you are in my thoughts and in my prayers always. God bless, and have a day as awesome as each and every one of you are. Love you back more.